We're not alone. There's no wind out here. That's not a bird. We're being watched, and that's okay, because that means we're also being listened to. So I'm going to go ahead and start talking. So here's what we're doing. We are increasing our communication skills, our ability to communicate with the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch that may or may not live in the forest behind my home. Because we want to send a very specific message to him, her, it, or they. Because of some newly revealed, earth-shattering information we have garnered from an ancient text taken from the hole of an old white oak tree in the epicenter of the lair of the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch. An ancient text that is up to 1,000 years old. Within that text, now here's where it gets complicated. Pay very close attention to this while you continue to get my 6. This will make complete and perfect sense by the time I tie this together. Within this ancient text, let me show you. I have it right here. Firstly, I know why they knocked our camera down already. We did not pay our respects of properly and officially announcing our unofficial presence in the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch forest. Alright, now that hopefully he, she, it, or they will leave our camera alone, we can proceed. Yeah, it doesn't get any more 6 than that. Straight back. Keep your eyes right here. I'm pulling out all the tools today, guys and girls, as well as introducing a new tool of communication. Watch right there. Watch for movement. Here's the ancient text. Many of you were there with me by way of video the day I stuck my arm deep down into the hole of that ancient white oak tree located in the epicenter of the lair of the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch. Yes, where we did see between timestamp 1735 and 1742, in that one video you saw, him, her, it, or they, potentially 2 of them walking behind us just after they may have taken our trail cam. This book was found within sight of that area. Well, after I put it there. But that tree that I put it in and then pulled back out of was right there within sight of that. This book, if you'll remember from that video, had the secret to life in it, the meaning of life. It let us know what they do with all that gluten once they take it out of the food. But it's a mathematical formula that is not in this ancient text that is up to 1,000 years old, that lets us know exactly why an entire civilization of potential Bigfoot Sasquatch have gone into hiding. That's how powerful this text is, and that's how powerful this mathematical formula, which does not exist and is not in this text, is. But it's caused an entire civilization to go into hiding. What are you talking about, Crazy Lake, you might say? I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm talking about, and I confirmed these numbers that do not exist with my CPA, who, by the way, has a law degree from Harvard. Though you'd never tell it by talking to him, because he's a down-to-earth, really cool guy that cusses more than I did back when I was in the Army. He's successful. He's got 2 offices in Richmond and in Charlottesville. Very successful man. He confirmed this mathematical formula, which is not in this ancient text that is up to 1,000 years old, does not exist. Further proof as to why him, her, it, or they have gone into hiding as an entire civilization. Now, here's what we're doing. Now that I know this information, now that I have obtained this knowledge, which I am getting ready to share with you in this video today, I'm not going to say, I'm getting ready to reveal this, just keep coming back. Now I'm going to tell you today, and I'm setting up our abilities to broadcast this information, that we know this knowledge and that we are not part of a particular group. We are not now, nor have we ever been, a part of a particular group that has caused him, her, it, or they to go into hiding. What we're doing is we are increasing our ability to communicate with him, her, it, or they through the receiver of the ultimate contraption by hooking up to the ultimate contraption an old well pump that no longer works on this side of the veil, as well as a reserve tank from my well, which no longer works on this side of the veil because it has a hole in it. This way, not only will we be able to broadcast our communications further into the other side of the veil for him, her, it, or they to potentially hear, but should they respond while we're asleep at night or taking our afternoon nap, their messages, or his or hers or its, if it's only one, will be stored in the reserve tank for us to come and listen to later. Oh, I know what you're saying. Crazy Lake, how are you going to store messages from Bigfoot Sasquatch in a reserve water tank that's got a hole in it? That don't make no sense. Duct tape. Silly. And they say I'm crazy. Now listen, if you've constructed any sort of ultimate contraption at your home for your potential Bigfoot Sasquatch research, if you follow what I'm doing today in order to increase your communication skills, which you'll probably want to do once I reveal this information, this mathematical formula, which is not in this ancient text that is up to 1,000 years old, let me point out one very important thing you must always remember. When dealing with any part of the ultimate contraption, always wear iPro. Let's see, so connected there, connected here. Connected here. Now listen, I'm going to reveal this information now. I'm going to reveal the mathematical formula that does not appear in this ancient text that is up to 1,000 years old, because it doesn't appear anywhere. And this is the explanation behind why him, her, it, or they went into hiding as an entire civilization. And it's my hopes that by sharing this information with him, her, it, or they will come out, as they potentially have already done around us. If you've seen in that one video between timestamp 1735 and 1742, you and 700,000 other people have seen it, or him, or her, or they, potentially two. All right, now, people want to talk about how science is hiding him, her, it, or they. Okay, science can be manipulated, as can math, in that you can make numbers. You can say, this is the outcome I want. How can I skew numbers to come out to this outcome? That can be done too. However, 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. No matter how much that might hurt your feelings, no matter how much that might offend you, no matter how much that might want to have you run off to your safe space and rock yourself into comfort. Thought I heard something. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4, okay? Math is solid and in many ways, in my opinion, more stable than science. Don't believe me? Why do you think there's such a kick about non-GMO? Look at what they've done to some of the frankenfruits and some of the vegetables and all these things they've genetically engineered and modified. They thought to make better. Some of this stuff's killing us. Definitive tree knocks. There is no way to genetically modify 2 plus 2 to make it equal anything other than 4. That's why math is more stable. Okay, you can Google this information. You can Google this. Look up, ironically, the date, July 4, 1804. Now, before I'm going to tell you about this date of what specifically happened out in the middle of America, what is now the middle of America, what at the time was the newly purchased middle of America, I'm going to ask you to remember or call to mind something that's kind of they call it a newer phenomenon, but it's really not. This information I'm about to give you will prove this is old phenomena renewed. Have you heard in recent years about these loud, sudden booms that are taking place out there in all kinds of different locations? They sound like explosions. They sound like perhaps a jet breaking the sound barrier, a sonic boom. Yet people can't find out what's creating these booms. There's no jets in that area at the time. There's been no earthquakes, no nothing. But yet these sounds are still being heard. You can Google all this. This phenomenon is called the Guns of Barisal, named after Barisal Bay, which is in Bangladesh, where this phenomenon occurs for some reason more regularly than anywhere else in the world. I have every reason to know why these sonic boom sounds occur there more than anywhere else in the world, but at this time I'm not going to release that information. But they're called the Guns of Barisal. Can't be explained, but they're very real. Now, July 4th, 1804, a couple of men from right here where I live, Albemarle County, Virginia, who were commissioned by one of our other old neighbors, a guy named Thomas Jefferson. Two guys, Lewis and Clark, were sent all the way across the country. It was the first time explorers from this new nation, especially new at that time, had gone from sea to shining sea. There's a great book called Sea to Shining Sea if you want to read it. Forget who wrote it, but I read it years ago. It's about their expedition, the Lewis and Clark expedition. They're making their way almost to the Mandan villages of the Midwestern Plains, of the Western Plains, just before they get to the Rockies. They hear these explosions. They hear these loud booms. Their curiosity is piqued, so they follow the noise. They were assuming there were maybe some falls, very high falls in a river, and there's the water cascaded down and crashed beneath the drop. It made these sounds. Well, they never found a river, and they supposedly never found what was making these sounds. I submit to you today that what they were hearing were the Guns of Barisal. Now, what creates these sounds? Here's where you really gotta have an open mind and a big imagination. Let's just say that him, her, it, or they were interdimensional. Let's say they could come in and out of our dimension in their own, through the glitch in the matrix, as it's been called, or through the thin slit in the veil, as it's been referred to. Doing something like that would require so much energy that when this action took place, it just might cause a very loud sound that sounded like a sonic boom. But the energy would be spent going in and out of the dimensions. There would be no residue, no big crater hole, nothing like that. Simply what some call creatures and others call entities going in and out of 2 different dimensions or more. So let's just say these creatures saw Lewis and Clark in their big expedition journeying west, and they came out to introduce themselves, because it is believed that these beings did communicate and stay in touch with the Native American Indians for thousands of years. They respected each other's boundaries. They didn't encroach upon each other's boundaries and borders. And many Native American Indian tribes would leave gifts for him, her, it, or they, and him, her, it, or they would leave gifts in return for the Native American Indians. Well, let's just say that when this entire civilization, or the leaders of this civilization, were to meet with Lewis and Clark, and they exchanged words, they met and they talked, Lewis and Clark, probably just like they told many of the Native American Indians, said, you know, we come in peace. We're not here to, you know, take your land, take your resources, or harm your people or your entities, your beings. We could tell you're a little bit taller, a little bit hairier than us. We're not here to hurt you. We can live in peace and harmony. And him, her, it, or they, their leaders, of course, would have said, well, that sounds great. Yeah, we're all for that. At which time, these explorers of the new nation would have said, oh, but you're going to have to give us just a little bit of the efforts of your labor to help support, you know, the entire cause we have going on. And you know, we know you guys are hunters and gatherers, and you do this stuff with roots and plants, and we're probably going to want to regulate some of your activities there. This, of course, would have thrown him, her, it, or they, or their leaders, their representatives, off into confusion, and they would have said, well, we don't really understand. What's this mean? And of course, they would have been told, and this is all hypotheticals here, by the leaders of the Lewis and Clark expedition, perhaps Meriwether Lewis himself, well, you know, we're going to take a certain percentage of what you've worked to earn and redistribute that and give it to people who didn't work to earn that. So that, you know, because, I mean, look at you, you're big, you're strong, you can probably, even though you're hunters and gatherers, you could probably carry a lot more berries than this guy over here. So it's only fair we take part of your berries and give to this guy that just can't carry as much as you. Well, Bigfoot Sasquatch would have thought, well, gee, that just doesn't make much sense to me, you know. And then Lewis and Clark probably would have said, you know, we got to make sure we know which sort of berries or plants you're ingesting, because we might want to regulate that and tell you you can't do it. This would have really confused him, her, it, or they. And at this point, I'm convinced they went into hiding. Seriously. And to further prove my hypothesis, that's when I went to my CPA. It was just about a month ago. A man who owns 2 branches of a very successful business and has a law degree from Harvard, as they call it up there. They call it the same thing way down in the South too. That's very interesting. It's like the further you go from one point, the closer you get to it with some of the dialects. Harvard. And I took this ancient text that I pulled out of the hole of that oak tree in the epicenter of the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch lair. And I said, can you go through this text and find the mathematical equation that says any percentage of what I've worked to earn belongs to anyone who did not work to earn it? You know what he said to me? He said, Kevin, I don't even need to open that book. I can tell you right now that formula does not exist. You can imagine my confusion. I said, well, crikey. I don't want to say his name. I'm like, hey, Tucker, crikey, I come down here every year, and some years you tell me I got to give the IRS $50,000. Last year wasn't so bad, but we still had to give them a lot. I'm like, you're telling me there is no formula in this book? I said, where anywhere is there a formula that states that any percentage of what I've worked to earn is due someone else who didn't work to earn that? And Tucker said, that formula doesn't exist. Again, how many times must I tell you? And I'm like, well, why are you telling me He said this is tax code. This is written in by, you know, the great father, the Lewis and Clark guys, whenever, actually 1917 or something. Might have been 1913. But it doesn't exist. That formula does not exist. So I am convinced, beyond all shadows of a doubt, that Bigfoot Sasquatch is really only hiding from the IRS. I'm convinced. I'm convinced him, her, it, or they is really only hiding from the IRS. And I'm here to tell him, her, it, or they, who may or may not be living in the forest behind my home, that I am not now, nor have I ever been, an agent of the IRS. I had these shirts custom designed so that when I'm out here in the potential Bigfoot Sasquatch forest looking for him, her, it, or they, because sometimes we're being watched. We, as in those of us who go squatching, we're being watched. Sometimes by only feet away, sometimes by greater distances. That's why, again, you must always keep multiple sized optics in your kit. But if him, her, it, or they are close enough to see me and read the writing on my shirt, this is what I want them to read. This is another way for me to communicate with them while I'm in the field. And these are available on our Teespring store. If you scroll down just underneath this video, you can get them too and wear them when you go squatching as well. And you're like, Crazy Lake, I don't like heather gray. I don't look good in that color. And it's getting hot now. It's going to be summer soon. I'm not wearing a hoodie while I'm going squatching. Are you crazy? Potentially. But I'm not that crazy. I've made them available in other designs and other colors, but we still send the same message to him, her, it, or they. Bigfoot Sasquatch is really only hiding from the IRS. Summer's here. I feel great in my t-shirt and I look better in blue than I do heather gray. That information I just gave you is entirely true. That mathematical formula does not exist in this ancient text, which is up to 1,000 years old, nor does it exist anywhere else, according to my CPA, who has a law degree from Harvard. Now, we pay it, we give it to them, and I'm grateful and thankful and blessed to have it to give. And my kid goes to a public school and I use the roads. So, I mean, I'm just saying, if you want to know why an entire civilization went into hiding, it's right here.